What's up, Yap Squad? And welcome back to another episode of a Yap Sesh Re-Yap or recap, but I like Re-Yap better because it's funny. We are talking about Skeleton Crew episode 6 today. If you're new here, my name is Brooke. I'm here with my co-host Sawyer and our guest co-host Meigs.
It's me.
Thank you all for being here and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, it's 2025. Good riddance and goodbye to 2024. And here's hoping that 2025 is better,
Hopefully.
Yes.
Praying.
even by a little bit. But yeah, we were blessed with one last Star Wars episode of 2024 on New Year's Eve, with this episode of Skeleton Crew, and I'm very excited to talk about it. I think it might be my favorite episode of the season.
Mhm.
Bryce Dallas Howard does it again, man.
Yes. So episode 6 is called Zero Friends Again. And it is directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. And if you're new here, Bryce Dallas Howard also is a director of many beloved Star Wars episodes. She first directed the Mandalorian episode, Chapter 4, Sanctuary, from the first season, which is one of my personal favorite episodes.
Same.
She also directed Chapter 11, The Heiress, which is the introduction of Bo-Katan into live action. And then the season 3 episode, Chapter 22, Guns for Hire, which I can't remember what episode that is.
I don't remember either. It sounds so familiar, though. So it was obviously an impactful one.
Mhm.
Oh, it's the silly
another Bo-Katan.
episode.
Yeah.
It's the silly one with Jack Black and Lizzo.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That makes sense.
Which is, wait, is that where? Yes. Okay, wait. I do love this episode. It is a little over the top and like kind of corny, but I specifically love this episode because Din Djarin thinks he can like fist fight
Yes.
B2 battle droid. And I love that himbo so much for him. I love him so much for that. It's so dumb.
He's doing his best, you know?
Yes. But I love everything that Bryce Dallas Howard has done for The Mandalorian, or for Star Wars, basically The Mandalorian, because I was going to say she also directed Chapter 5, The Return of the Mandalorian episode of Book of Boba Fett, which is really just a Mandalorian episode. And it's probably one of my favorite Star Wars episodes of television.
Yes, definitely agree.
It's just really good. But anyway, Bryce Dallas Howard is just, everything she touches is very magical in the world of Star Wars. And this episode was also written by young Joe Westner, who also wrote episode 5, last week's episode. So this was not only written but also directed by a woman this time. Let's, round of applause.
Yay!
For women.
As it should be. We love women.
Initial thoughts, spoiler free.
This episode made me weep. I loved it so much. It was so good. That's my thought. I just loved it.
How about you, Sawyer?
I loved it. I thought it was such a great episode, and the representation for disabilities that we get, and we'll talk about this later, was just incredible. I talked about it a bit on my Twitter this week. It just was so touching, and I felt so seen by this episode. And I'm just really grateful for this show in general. I think it's brought out the best of Star Wars, and it's been such a joy to watch and recap it every week.
Yes. I was thinking about this the other day, and I don't hold on.
This is the part where we let everyone know that Brooke is kind of dying, but it's okay.
It turns out I have walking pneumonia. And so when you have that, you cough a lot and it's hard to breathe. And if you're watching us on the YouTube, you can see that I have a nose strip on my nose that is supposed to help open your airway. Because I also have a deviated septum that I've never gotten properly addressed by doctors. Anyway, I don't want to compare the show that much to The Acolyte, but because they came out like, in the same time frame, year or whatever, it's hard
Mhm.
not to. But I don't know, you can tell me if you're seeing, because I have kind of stayed away from like Star Wars social media discourse.
For
I
sure.
haven't seen a lot of hate for for Skeleton Crew in the
No.
same way that I've seen it for the Acolyte, which
Definitely
there
not in
are
the same degree.
different reasons why, I think, but I just want to like be validated that that there has not been as much like vitriol.
Yeah. I would say it's like obviously the haters are still gonna be there, but I think it is definitely less severe than it was for the Acolyte for sure. Like
Mhm.
I've seen some discourse about certain things and people arguing about whatever, but like compared to what we saw then, this is like cakewalk. This is like basic
Yeah.
Star Wars discourse to me. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
Mhm.
what they're
absolutely.
talking about feels like the regular stuff compared
Yeah.
to what it was. So
And that's why like I didn't want to compare it too much to the Acolyte because that is like the most recent thing, and that's the most recent Star Wars thing that has gotten that level of discourse in
for
a
sure.
long time. I was just like, I don't know, I guess I was expecting to see more of that same energy for Skeleton Crew because like it is like a show of kids and not all the kids are white, like they're not all Anakin Skywalker, et
Yeah.
cetera, et cetera. And like we know how historically Star Wars fans have treated their child actors. And I know
Mhm.
that was a thing that a lot of people were like worried about before the show came out. So I'm pleasantly surprised. But it also just disappoints me that something like The Acolyte, which was really cool, is like something that the fandom was not ready for, you
Yeah,
know?
Mhm.
I agree.
Um I think there's like a bunch of different things we could talk about with it. Like I think marketing of the two shows were completely different. How we've seen the creators talk about the shows,
For sure.
I think are different, the way that rightfully so the people involved in the Acolyte should be able to talk about their inclusivity and like diversity that they are trying to
Yeah.
showcase,
Mhm.
turns a lot of people off. And that sucks, and those people suck for thinking that, but that's just the way it goes. And
Yeah.
if you're not like plugged in online, but you're talking to somebody who is, like, you can be swayed very easily by people
For sure.
like that. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
even those, chronically online haters can get their claws in, their friends and family at home to convince them, "Oh, don't watch the show because it sucks." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And vice versa. I've gotten people to watch Star Wars things because I'm more online than they are, and I'm like, "No, it's really fun. It's really cute. You don't really have to know a lot about Star Wars to watch it and enjoy it. If you have
Yeah.
kids, they'll probably like it, et cetera, et cetera." So it goes both ways. But I just wanted to point that out because we're almost through the entire show, the entire season. Um, but I will just say I'm pleasantly surprised that
Me
the
too.
reception of Skeleton Crew has been good, especially for the kids
Yeah.
involved and the actors.
Me and my brother had a really long talk about it when I was home for the holidays because I love my brother, but he is very much on more of the hater side of Star Wars in terms of he's not very vocal about it. But he definitely like we were talking about Skeleton Crew and I was like, "Oh, have you watched it yet?" And he goes, "No." And I was like, "Well, why?" And he was like, "I'm just kind of burned out by Star Wars." And I was like, "Explain further." Clarify, please.
Yeah.
And he was talking about like what we just talked about, where he was like, it just felt like it just feels like they're not prioritizing good stories, they're just prioritizing inclusion. And I go, okay. And so we had a very long conversation about that. And I think that that's one thing that makes me so sad is that some of these people won't even give shows like this a chance because they're so like, well, that last thing wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be for whatever reason. And so this next thing probably won't be since they like ruined the last one. And I'm like, okay, these are all different projects made by different people, like, and there's always different visions. And I think that you can't disregard Star Wars as a whole if you have one thing that you don't like, because I have things that I don't like about Star Wars that, and I just don't watch those things. And I watch the things that I do like I feel like it's not hard, it's such a big fan base with so many things, you can find something that you like, you know.
Yeah. I just don't understand Star Wars fans who are so adverse to new Star Wars.
I agree.
It's of course you consume what you want to consume,
For
but
sure.
why
You
make a
lose
big
out-
stink about it?
You lose out on so many cool stories that are enhancing the world that you already know.
Yeah.
Like they're continuously adding things to make this galaxy cooler and bigger, and you're just kind of ignoring it.
Yeah. And I think with a show like Skeleton Crew, it really plays up the nostalgia of the things that we all love about Star Wars, and I think that there's been such a sense of community around this show because of that.
Yeah.
That we haven't seen in quite a long time. So I wish people would give it a chance, but more for us.
More for us. We will enjoy.
Yes. And I will. And I will be a fan that is being serviced. But I don't even think like the show is not, it is definitely playing on our nostalgia, right? Because there's so many nods in this show to the Goonies, all of your favorite 80s like it's playing to the nostalgia of the kids born in the 80s and their kids that are now watching it and can relate to the kids in the show. So like it's got a, I think the target audience is pretty broad. And it hasn't like really exclusively or explicitly stated that, hey, this is in the time period of the Mandalorian. Like the show has not said that. The creators have said that this is when this is taking place. And Lucasfilm has. But I think like because of all of those things, it's a good like accessible thing for fans to watch, even if they're not super familiar with Star Wars. So I think there's a lot of things going for it that are making people like enjoy it.
Yeah, for sure.
Like
I agree.
broader than like the Star Wars canon or whatever. Like that's not as important, at least as of right now. But I can't help but think that it will be important because there's a reason it was put in this time period.
For sure.
So I want to see, like, I'm excited to see as the show ends, where is the connection there, where it's going to lead into something Mandalorian verse, whatever the fuck related.
Dave Filoni literally just said in an interview in the last like 2 days that we are going to see some of the stuff from Skeleton Crew in future projects. Like he has made that known that they are going to come back, whether it's the kids or the adults, like in some capacity. He didn't specify who, but people will be showing up again. And so there has to be some kind of significance, obviously. Which is what we've been trying to figure out this entire show.
True. I mean, maybe it'll connect to the greater like New Republic.
That's what I'm
maybe.
wondering.
I'll be honest.
Like, I don't know.
If in the next 2 episodes it directly ties to the Mandoverse, I'm probably going to be pretty disappointed because I like that it's its own thing, and I don't like. Yeah, it's nice to see characters that we know sometimes, but I much prefer these newer stories. Yeah. So I have no problem with them coming back at all. I want to see these characters. I want to see more of these characters. But for me, like, there's something so special about the show in that it's a self-contained story, and maybe it does exist in a time period we're familiar with, but it's not having to do with anything else that's going on, and I love that so much. So personally, I would not want to see like a cameo or something to wrap up this season, but
yeah, I would hope wouldn't wrap it up. Like I feel like if it happened in the next episode, I'd be more okay with it because I'd be like, yeah, okay, this is the second to last episode, you want to like tie it in somehow. But if it ended that way, I think I'd be a little bummed. I'd be like, oh, but this was okay.
Yeah, I'm like logistic wise, my brain is like wired to be like, why did they plan for this? Not even just like narratively, but just like I think about like the marketing of something
for sure
and the projects that are coming next. It's like,
and why they brought these things up,
and we're getting Mandalorian stuff, like we're getting a Mando movie, we're getting a season 2 of Ahsoka, like we're getting more stuff from this time period. So specifically because of that, there are like upcoming things. I'm like, there has to be a reason why they put this story here, you know?
For sure.
So, because it could have easily, if it's not related to anything, they could have easily plucked it and put it in like later before the First Order, like or closer to the sequel time period. So I don't know. I agree. Like I hope that they don't do like a direct tie, like, oh, here's, Din and Grogu who land on this planet because they're looking for XYZ. I don't think that's gonna happen because it just
No.
doesn't seem like that kind of show. It seems like it'll be more like things from this will show up again for a purpose.
For sure.
But I guess we'll just wait and see. But I guess that was enough yapping about what the future holds, and we can talk a little bit more about what actually happened in the episode.
Yeah.
So we last left off with Jod having backstabbed the children a little bit, claiming ownership or captain code, taking over for the ship as captain, and then the kids promptly escaping in their little chute, little booby trap thing that was in Tack Rened's like place of jewels.
His hoard.
What was that called? His
It's like a dragon hoard.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
His
Cave
little
of Wonders.
treasure. And so we find out where the kids ended up. It turns out that is just like a trash chute. Essentially.
At least it wasn't a compactor.
Yes.
Yeah. I did see that there were like I definitely got the nods to like Empire Strikes Back right away.
Yeah.
With Luke going down that big chute
And
like the trash compactor nods for A New Hope. But then also I saw someone had pointed this out. I did not know that Ron Howard, Bryce Dallas Howard's dad, directed the Grinch movie.
Oh.
And there is a scene in that movie where the Grinch is like sliding down a fucking tube like that. And people are saying that it's like a nod to her dad's work. And I'm like, that's crazy. First of all, I didn't know that he directed that movie. I didn't even think about that. I was just making Star Wars connections. Yeah.
I kind of love that.
It's kind of like the same mind-blowing time that I had when I found out that James Gunn wrote the Scooby-Doo movies.
Dude, when I found that out, I literally thought I was tripping.
What?
I was like,
yeah. James Gunn wrote the live-action Scooby-Doo movies.
That's crazy.
Yeah. That's why they're so good.
That's so funny. Anyway. Oh my god.
The kids land on this little island. Not island. They land down the chute of the trash. Meanwhile, Jod is like hysterically laughing about the treasure that he found just to be not arrested or captured by the pirates. And taken away, which we don't see a lot of Jod. We see him in 2 scenes in this?
Good.
Yeah.
He doesn't deserve the screen time.
He's pretty much just in the beginning because we get that like opening of the kids and KB having like a shorting out of her cybernetic stuff. And then Jod immediately pops out of a wormhole with just like a bunch of stuff and is like, hey guys!
Maniacal laughter, yeah.
And then SM-33 pops out and gets immediately zapped. And that's when Pocket's like, come on, you're getting taken away. And then that's pretty much all we see of him.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess
we do get
yeah.
We get the sequence of him explaining that he found he exercises his right to his final words on the ship. And he's able to tell the pirates that they need to follow him to Aden. But beyond that, this episode is really about the kids and their journey so far.
Yeah. We did also get the pirate song.
We got a space shanty.
I was like, yay!
When I tell you I've been listening, I have a playlist on Spotify that I have made just called Shanties and Shit. Like I have been listening to...
Can you please send me that?
Yes. Well, it started with I was listening to the Critical Role Winter's Crest Critmas album that they put out. And like Spotify recommends, like they'll play like other recommended things.
Yeah.
Then it moved on to like some Vox Machina music.
Oh my god,
And
I'm
then
sending
some-
you a song right now to
and
add
then
to
some
that.
other video game music. And then suddenly I was getting shanties, and I was like, wait. I was like, I'm kind of into this right now because of Skeleton Crew. And that is how I have started to curate a playlist.
I
I
will
was
be
really
sending
happy
you
to
a song.
see. Please do. I was really happy to see Jod singing a space shanty in this episode.
Yeah. Love it.
Pretty cool. But yeah, so anyway, the kids are on this beach, and it turns out that KB's I don't know if they had explicitly stated that she was like a cyborg or whatever.
No,
it-
I
In the
don't.
show.
Was it?
It was never explicitly stated in the show. We knew that, like, I think the only thing that they had said before the show was that she had the cybernetic components and that she was like partly whatever, but they had
Yeah.
never specified exactly what was going on.
Yeah, I just I don't know if I just I didn't assume that it was because of any type of like ailment. I was like, oh, maybe she's just really likes technology. But I
Mhm.
actually
Yeah.
really like the direction that they went with it.
Absolutely.
And that
Me
it turns out that
too.
they are like accessibility needs for her because she was in this accident that requires her to have these now. So, and we got the awesome disability rep that we'll see later in the episode.
So good.
But yeah, I want to talk a little bit about like Fern and KB's relationship and
Mhm.
how that was kind of I
Mhm.
think the relationship that was tested the most
Yes.
in this episode. And then how that led to the kids splitting up, and we're getting kind of to see these unlikely pairings between the four kids and dynamics that we hadn't really explored yet. If y'all have any thoughts?
This episode and that person, like that dynamic, reminded me very much of a dynamic that I have in my real life, where I feel like there's been somebody who has domineered a lot of choices that I've made and not paid attention to my needs.
Sure.
So I really appreciated I so appreciate the character work in this show. It's so masterfully done, and the dialogue feels so natural for what kids these age would say to each other. And I think for the first time pretty much ever, I truly saw myself in a Star Wars scene with these
Yeah.
two characters.
Mhm.
And it really touched me. I really related to KB and feeling like she wasn't being heard by someone she looks up to and considers her best friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the same. Like, I think I spent a lot of my life trying to like dim down the things that I was dealing with and having people be like, no, you can do it. It's fine. Because I had done it my whole life. And especially like in my adult life, it has happened a lot where a lot of people are like, well, you've done it your entire life. Why can't you do it now? And I'm like, things are a lot different now. And like, I am a lot less willing to put up with those things now. And so I think that was also the first time that I really like sat there and was like, wow, I'm seeing myself like on screen right now and seeing
Mhm.
myself represented, which was so cool. Because like there's tons of things that I can relate to in lots of characters in Star Wars. There's always pieces of them that I can always find things to relate to. But I feel like KB and that relationship and like everything that happened in this episode, I really sat there and I was like, okay, wow, this is like, is this what it feels like? Like, this is kind of crazy. It was really cool. And so and I liked that they split off into these unlikely pairings because like I've always been a part of like pretty big friend groups. And so, you know, every once in a while something happens and you kind of split off into these little groups that are like unlikely that you don't really expect. And I really enjoyed that because it shows you that like, while yeah, you have your core people in your friend group that you probably hang out with more, you still all are friends and still all have things that you can do to better each other and like be there for one another, even if you don't do that all the time. And I really liked that about this episode too.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different types of people that could relate to KB in this episode specifically, especially with like the like people in being in your life not thinking about your capabilities or not being capable, or your like limits. Because I think there is so many like in media and everything, especially in like those, the type of movies where it's like, I'm not disabled, I'm a superhero because of my disability. That has like warped so many people's opinions. It's like,
Yeah.
well, oh, look at this person who, can run a marathon and they don't have any legs. It's like, that means you can do that stuff, right? You can do anything. And it's like, it's I don't want to what is it? I saw someone refer to it as something porn for like able-bodied
Mm,
people or like
yeah.
non-disabled people, to make they're so inspired by that, because it's like, well, if this person can do XYZ, then I can do anything because like I'm able-bodied and I don't have any ailments like that. But then they apply all of that to everyone,
Yeah.
and not like, and that makes it hard, I think, for somebody who does have some limits to advocate for themselves, which is what we saw a lot of in this episode, with KB being kind of nervous or afraid to speak up for herself for what she was actually capable of doing, because I don't
Yeah.
I don't think she wanted to disappoint Fern, but I also don't think that she wanted to like admit it to herself
Yeah.
until she realized like, oh no, I really have to take care of myself.
Yeah. I think it's like that thing of like, you know when you're like really really tired but you just keep doing more things and you're like, I'm not that tired, I can keep going, and then like there's a point where you just hit a wall and you're like, I'm done, like this is not working. And I feel like that's like the best like basic way to explain it, of like there's a point where, as someone with a disability, because like I use a walker, I don't use it every day, but I use a walker when I need it, because that's something that I need sometimes. And like there are plenty of like the last couple months I haven't needed it because I haven't been doing things that like have caused me to need it, but there will be a point in the future that I will need to use it again. And I think that people like see that and they're like, well, you don't need it all the time, so why do you need it at all? And it's like, that's not how that works. And I think that was another thing, was like, yeah, KB might be okay most of the time, but there are going to be points where KB is not okay and needs to stop, you know? And I really loved that they focused on that so heavily, because like it's a very accurate and real experience for a lot of people who deal with disabilities and things, is like a lot of the time, yeah, we're okay, but there are some days where we're really not okay. You know?
Yeah, and it's I feel like there are people in the world who say that they are okay with it or supportive, but they're only supportive up to a point where until it becomes inconveniencing for them.
Yeah.
And then it's like, then they get irritated when you actually have your boundaries of, hey, I can't do this today. And I don't know, it's such a like like complicated thing, because, and I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to like Instagram threads, but it's been a very interesting place where I've seen a lot of like think pieces about XYZ, and I keep seeing things about like, oh, like the reason that people are making you put down a deposit when you make an appointment is because so many people are flaky, and why aren't people having parties anymore? It's because, oh, everyone's flaking, blah blah blah. And it's just like, yes, there's a larger conversation about like, if you invite 100 people to a party and then like 3 people show up, like that sucks. But also read the room, like we're still in the middle of a pandemic, whether people want to admit that or not. And there's
Yeah.
also people like, I used to force myself to go and do all of these social outings because I didn't want to upset anyone, but I just can't do that anymore. And I
Yeah.
think like for me, the like late diagnosed neurodivergent person in me could really relate, having, a lot of friends who I was friends with pre and now post knowing that I'm neurodivergent.
Yeah.
And it's like, why can't you, no one has ever outright said like, oh, you used to be able to do, like, I say that to myself, like, I used to be able to do XYZ,
Yeah.
get up,
Mhm.
work 12 hours, go to school, work 2 jobs, come home,
Yeah.
go to sleep, do it all the next day. And it's like, I just can't do that anymore. And so I make myself feel a little guilty. No one has ever actually personally come to me and been like, hey, you used to be able to do XYZ, but you can
Mhm.
still feel when they feel that way
Yeah.
sometimes, when you have, and it's a hard thing to explain, and it makes it even harder to advocate for yourself because you don't want to disappoint people,
Mhm.
but like it's also not fair for you if they are not understanding of your
Yeah.
circumstances.
I agree. I just really like that they aren't hesitating to touch on these things because, like, yes, it's taken a long time for them to like put this into Star Wars or into like a modern media, but I'm glad that they took the time for pretty much the entire episode to like really focus on it and show like
Mhm.
Mhm.
how it can affect someone, especially a kid. Like when you're a kid, you're watching all these other kids run around and do all these things, and then you're like, wait, why can't I do that? Like
Yeah.
it's really hard when you're growing, and it just doesn't really make sense at that time. And so I'm glad that they had the kids have that moment of like, you can still support your friend and still be there for them, even if they have to do
Mhm.
things a little bit differently.
Yeah.
I love so much how they framed that whole storyline because they like kind of primed Fern first with Neil being like, well, not all of your friends can do the same things that you can do. And as far as we know, Neil is able-bodied for the species that he is, but he still has different capabilities than somebody else does. So I think someone everyone can take something away from a lesson like that. It's just obviously like it's going to target specific groups of people, like people that have disabilities or people that need like aids and accessibility, like things like that. Like it's going to
Yeah,
hit them harder, but it's still a really good takeaway lesson, I think, for anybody, especially when you have kids that are watching this show,
for sure.
like being able to take that away. Right. Like I, you as a kid, you might still be able to like be able-bodied enough to, play sports, do XYZ, but not everybody like on the soccer team is going to be able to run the same distance or run the same speed. Just thinking about my experience at camp with kids and having
Yeah.
to or teaching kids like kind of the same thing. Like not everyone is going to have the same capabilities that you do, and that's okay because everybody has
Mhm.
different strengths and weaknesses and interests and things that they're good at, and that doesn't mean you have to stop trying just because you're not the best at something.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I just really liked how they included, not it wasn't just about KB, but they also used all of the kids to tell that story. And I
Yeah.
really appreciated Wim in this episode,
Me
that
Yeah.
he was just like, no, you can just be my friend, it's okay. Like,
He's like, don't worry about
well,
it.
it was so sweet. And I've as we were talking, I was making the connection that like I think it is harder when you have like lifelong friends or friends that you've been friends with for a long time, and then something drastic in your life changes to where you can't do the same things you used to be able to. It can be a hard adjustment for not only you but your friends too. Like there is a level
Yeah.
of understanding that I have for that, but then it's
Mhm.
like you might meet somebody after, like now the more like neurodivergent friends that I meet, or people that I meet that just they know me for this version of myself.
Yeah.
They're so much more like adaptable because they
Yeah.
don't know anything different. And I feel like that's
Yeah.
what Wim kind
100%.
of represented in this episode for me.
Yeah. 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 That's a great point. I absolutely feel the same way. It's been my
For sure.
experience too as a neurodivergent adult, meeting new friends, meeting new friends at my new normal
Yeah, I agree.
makes it a lot easier for them to adapt, whereas friends that I've had my entire life, they have a little bit more difficulty. They're the Fern in that situation of like not
Yeah.
understanding why I can't do things that I maybe previously was able to do.
Well, and I like this kind of ties into like that part of the episode where Wim is trying to help fix KB, and KB's like kind of explaining everything and how like Fern has tried to treat KB the same after her accident, because she said that it was like an accident that caused whatever cybernetic
Mhm.
stuff that she needed, and how Fern has tried really hard to like act like everything's the same, and Wim goes, well, isn't that a good thing? And she's like, but I am different, like there things have changed and that's okay, but like I need her to understand that like things are different, and I need to adjust how I'm doing things. And I feel like that's something that a lot of people forget, is like when something happens or when you find out something. Like when I found out I had ADHD and then I was dealing with like chronic pain issues, and it wasn't just that I was tired all the time, I was like, oh, my mindset is totally different now. And so it changed a lot of the way that I operated, and a lot of people that I was friends with at the time didn't understand why I suddenly like switched my mindset and switched the way that I was acting in life in general. And I very much had a very similar experience of like, I am different, and like I may have just realized it now, but like this is something I've been dealing with my whole life. I just have words to explain it. And so
Mhm.
I really liked that she was like, it's okay to be different, and like Fern needs to learn that I am going to be different and things are going to be different. Like I can still do a lot of the things, but it's going to look different than it was. And I really liked that.
Okay. Uh and then we get, on the other hand, so we get KB and Wim, and I love how just like receptive Wim is, and he's like, how can I help you? Like he is not like scared. Like he's scared, but he's not in a way it's like, well, I can't handle this. He's like, no, like we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna help
Yeah.
you.
Which is so cute.
But on the other hand, we get Fern and Neil together. And I love that. I know that Neil was like, I don't want to do this, but I don't want Fern to be alone. So I'm going to go with her. And that just,
So
sweet
cute.
baby angel.
Love Neil.
I love him so much.
It was just so sweet. And I think, you know, in addition to this being a lesson for Fern in her friendship with KB, but also just a lesson to Fern that it's like she doesn't have to be the one to always be the decision maker. Like
Yeah.
if you can be a leader and still take input from your team.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I love that moment where Neil goes. We already touched on it briefly, but when Neil explains to Fern that not everyone can do the things that she can do, and she's quick to act and realize that there's a solution, and she grabs the rope and makes a little harness for him. I love that so
Mhm.
much.
So good.
Yeah. I think everyone should take some lessons from these kids
I agree.
because
Kids are the
everyone-
best teachers, dude.
yeah, I was going to say everyone should take lessons from kids in general. Like
Yeah.
anytime I have a kid in one of my classes. I don't remember the context of what we were talking about. We had just read a story. I read a story to them, and it was like a very it's a book. I want to say the book is called We Are a Class, but it's all
Mhm.
about like all the different types of people that it's actually very related. The more I think about it, the book is very related to like what we're talking about with like everybody's different. Everybody comes from a different sort of background and has different capabilities. But like we're all in this together. We're all a class. We're all a team. But the specific topic of gender came up, and I don't remember. Someone asked something, and I said there might have been like a non-binary person in the book, or they used like they as a pronoun in the book, and someone asked about it, and I was like, well, someone could be a he or a she or a they. And then one of the kids was like, or yeah, or non-binary. And this kid is like 4. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And it's just so like kids are so malleable. Like they've not been indoctrinated yet by the societal standards. Like you can tell them something and they're going to understand it and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know,
It's so
and I
cool.
wouldn't be surprised if like the kid that I talked to specifically like was non-binary or, you know, discovered that later on as they get older, because there are kids, like elementary school kids that I talk to that are like from that age are very sure that they're like, yeah, I
Yeah.
don't feel like a girl or a boy. And I'm like, that's cool, you know? And it's just like they're so understanding in a way that adults aren't if they weren't taught
Yeah.
that way.
Mhm.
It's like it's so, and I've seen something about, kind of unrelated but also related, about how because of like if you're autistic and you have that black and white thinking, you can so easily change your point of view. Like as soon as you're given more information about something, you're like, "Oh, cool, yeah, that makes sense." Because a
Mhm.
lot of allistic people or neurotypical people think with their emotions and not with like logic. It's like
Yeah.
they could logically understand something but then still not want it or not like it because it upsets them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I
that
feel like
makes sense.
kids are very like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense in my head. So that's cool. We're gonna roll with it now."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But that's just the teacher in me.
Listen, I was a camp counselor. I feel like I learned so much from kids when I was a counselor. Like kids are just so, and they're so, a lot of them are so willing to just say whatever they think, and like sometimes they'll spout the most like prolific, like beautiful things to you, and then just go running to kick a soccer ball, and you're like, yeah. You're
Yeah.
like, awesome. And they don't realize how much they like rocked your worldview because they're just a kid. They're like, yeah, this is just how it is. And you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
And I just love that.
Yeah, I like think I was like thinking back now a lot now that I know that I'm ADHD and autistic. It's like thinking back about being a child and I'm like having to recontextualize my whole life. But it's like, at what point did I realize that? At what point did I start to realize these like societal standards that I needed to uphold?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until, or that like, I didn't feel any different from any of the other kids until I was probably in like middle school when my entire friend group just decided to get up and stop talking to me.
Yeah.
And I think like originally I didn't, I still, I mean, now I know why, but for a long time I didn't understand why. And I was like, well, is it because I'm more immature than them, or like they moving on to other interests? But it's like I had a lot of the same interests as that they did. Like I still liked clothes and hair and makeup and shoes and stuff, like as a 12 girl, like normal 12-year-old girl. But I think it's also like they noticed something about me that was different than them. But it's
Mhm.
because that they, I don't know, I think it's a lot of it has to do with like the societal norms. It's like, oh, it's now I'm at this age, so it's not cool to do this anymore
Yeah.
or whatever.
Mhm.
And it's like, well, I don't care because I still like doing that, so it doesn't matter to me. But like I just think about like how kids, a lot of kids develop like they, I don't, what am I trying to say? They exhibit a lot of like what I think is some of your like standard like autistic traits, like saying what they think or not worrying about what other people are going to think. If they say something, they're going to tell the truth or whatever. Because you know how many like 8-year-olds come up to me and they're like, "What's that thing on your face?" And I'm like, "It's a pimple patch." And they're like, "That's weird. What's that?" Or like, "What does it do?" You know what I mean? Like, whereas adults, like if someone came up to me and they're wearing a pimple patch, if I was not their friend, I probably just would ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I feel like we outgrow a lot of those things, like just in general, when we go from like kids to young adult and adulthood, in a way that I think autistic women have to like train themselves to not do anymore because of the masking, because like
Oh
we have
yeah.
to do it. But if you're thinking about just like non-masking autistic person, they have a lot of the same traits that like the kids at my summer camp do, because
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's not an immaturity thing. It's just like they don't understand. It's not even that they don't understand, because I understand a lot of the society, like the social norms. I just don't like them, or I think that they're dumb. You know what I mean?
For sure.
I don't know, this has gone on like a very
I know we're not even recapping the episode at this point. We're just talking about. Listen, this episode was so good, and I feel like we have a right to talk about it. Okay.
You know what? I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that I almost like this better because we are talking about the episode, but we're
Yeah.
talking about what the episode meant to us rather than just like recapping everything that happens in the episode.
I
So
agree.
Yeah. And hopefully
This is more
somebody
fun.
can listen to this and like maybe have a better understanding of the episode.
yeah,
Well, and I
I
think-
definitely. Oh,
No, you go. Go.
I was just gonna say I definitely had some conversations online this week with people who were not. They didn't understand that what was happening was disability representation until I pointed it out or other people
Mhm.
pointed it out. I got a lot of comments that were like, "Oh gosh, I didn't think about that way before. Thank you for opening my eyes." And like, so I think these conversations are really important because I mean, and while we're on the subject, I mean, I we think of when you think of disabled Star Wars characters, like obviously Darth Vader comes to mind at first, but
Mhm.
like that was not something that I registered until someone else pointed out to me. Like, of course, yes, of course Darth Vader is disabled. He uses a respirator. He has artificial limbs. Like, of course he is, but that's not something that registered within me until somebody pointed it out to me. And I think these conversations are really important for that reason.
100%. That's exactly what I was going to say, was that I feel like shows being able to start the conversation is exactly why art, media, movies, music, whatever is so important, because it starts that conversation and starts people going, oh, wait, that makes so much more sense, because it can put it in a context where people who do not have these experiences daily can see it and go, oh my god, that's how you've been feeling. And it can give people a lot more context, because you can say over and over, this is how I've been feeling, this is the things I've been struggling with, and someone can go, yeah, okay, and not fully understand it. But when you're able to give them like a piece of media, because like the best example that I always use is I love music. Music has always been the way that I am able to express myself, because I just have a hard time expressing myself verbally and telling people how I feel. So I make playlists. I find songs, and I like, that's the best way that I can easily equate how I feel about things, is through that medium. And I feel like shows and things like that are another wonderful way for people to be like, even start these conversations. Like someone who's going through something similar to like what is going through in this episode can point out this episode and be like, hey, you know that thing I've been struggling with? Here's a perfect example. And it really opens up the door for those conversations to be had, which is so cool, and why I love Star Wars and things like this, because it really helps people be able to start those conversations. And it also makes it more casual, I feel like, in a way, and be able to be digestible in a way that's not scary, because I think a lot of people are scared to talk about disabilities, to talk about hard topics, and I think that shows and things like this make it easier to digest in like a more like normal quote unquote way, in a way that people who are disabled or neurodivergent can easily digest it, you know?
No, you're totally
So.
right. I feel like I saw this conversation happen a lot when the Barbie movie came out, where there were a lot of people who were criticizing it for being very like surface level feminism. And it's like, well, there are a lot of people online in their very small circles talking about what it means to be an intersectional feminist. Like the movie is not for those people, or the movie is not for the people that already understand that. The movie is for general audiences who might otherwise never have a sit down conversation about what it means to be a woman in this world. And now there is a piece of media that is like a baseline that everybody, like, that was so mainstream that so many people saw, that now everybody can start talking about the different themes in the movie. And if that's like something you're interested in, you can go into it further. It's like, for me, media has always been like, movies and TV and books have always been a way that I like connect and understand the world. And
I
so
agree.
like, could the movie have been, more in depth with these issues? Sure. But then it's not as digestible for the average person. And like you said, it's so much easier sometimes to give somebody something, be like, here, I want you to watch this or listen to this, and maybe it'll help you understand something a little bit better. And so I just think that's beautiful. And shout out to Star Wars.
Shout out to Star Wars. Woo! Shout out to Skeleton Crew. We love you.
We do. We have not even gotten to the trash crabs yet, though.
I was just thinking that.
I love the trash crabs.
I loved them, and I know immediately, and this is my like, I would go so far maybe to say that voice acting and like voice actors are like a special interest of mine, because I'm so good at hearing a voice and picking it out and being like, oh, even like watching commercials, I'll be like, oh, that was so and so who narrated that commercial. And my boyfriend will be like, how the fuck did you know that? I'm like, I don't know, it's just his voice. But anyway, I just know, I didn't look at the credits, so I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. I know that the trash crabs were voiced by Matthew Wood. Long-winded way of saying that was Matthew Wood.
I'm looking right now.
If I'm wrong, I'm willing to take the L. But
I'm going to look. You keep talking, I'll look.
Matthew Wood is a sound designer for Lucasfilm and did the voice of General Grievous and all the battle droids in Clone Wars.
It doesn't say so.
Damn. I
It's
hope
not
to
on
God you're right.
Wikipedia.
I'm looking on IMDb. Hold on.
I mean, there's a lot of like uncredited voice roles that happen.
Yeah.
So we might not be even like
6.
anywhere.
Hold on, I'm looking. Cast. Credit order. There's Pocket. Damn. Not credited. I wonder if it's in the credits on the show.
Apparently it's not credited yet,
Damn.
but there is speculation that it is Matthew Wood.
I was gonna say, I just found a Reddit post. Anyone know who voiced the trash crabs? And the top comment said, they sounded like adjusted voices of battle droids to me, so if it is the same VA, then it would be Matthew Wood, who does have a VA credit on Skeleton Crew, but it doesn't list what his voice was used for. So I'm gonna say that that's a win for now.
I agree. I think you got it. No, I
was kind of mad when
the one
the
as a boot.
crabs. What?
Oh, I love the one as a boot.
Oh,
boot
yeah.
trash crab. Sorry. Continue.
No, I was just gonna say I was kind of mad when it turned out that they were bad, because I was vibing with the trash crabs, and then all of a sudden the giant one comes and they're food.
Yeah.
They were so cute. I think Neil should have still taken one as like a little pet.
It's like every kid's first pet is a hermit crab.
He could have taken the one with the boo.
Yeah. Oh, he loves like taking care of little things. He loved that little rat. 33's in a rat.
No, the first thing I said when we saw the big one, because it was in one of the trailers like really early on, and I have it somewhere on my Twitter where I said, oh my god, it looks like Tamatoa. And I'm glad that everyone had that same experience now watching the episode, because I had that experience like 4 months ago where I was like, is that Tamatoa? And then literally everyone on Twitter was like, it looks like Tamatoa.
It is really like scarily similar design.
Yes. And I was like, this is crazy. I kind of love it though.
I need somebody to like edit that with the song.
Oh my god, I can do it. I got it.
Please do.
Give me like an hour after this. I'll do it.
Please do it, and we'll insert a clip into that. Or we'll link it. We'll link it in the description.
Perfect. Yeah, I loved that. So and then there's something else about that made me giggle. Oh, no, it was the behind the scenes part of that. The fact that the crab was stop motion.
Oh,
he was not CGI. He was fully stop motion. There's a video. I don't know if it was if it was John Watts or Christopher Ford doing it, but they did fully stop motion for that big gigantic crab, which is insane and looked so cool behind the scenes.
Yeah, I'm looking at this now. created and controlled by the team at Tippett Studios, founded by Phil Tippett. You know, the
Nice.
legendary team behind other Star Wars stop motion moments like Empire Strikes Back, AT-ATs, and Return of the Jedi's Rancor. On its
cool.
own, that would be noteworthy, but tetanus, which is referred to simply as monster trash crab in marketing materials, has some very cool Star Wars Easter eggs too. Yeah, Star Wars put out on their socials
Yes.
a video about how they made the miniature, and there was a whole bunch of different pieces of like Star Wars droids and
Mhm.
ships that they
And helmets.
used and helmets that they used all in the miniature, and I think that's really cool. So there was like a piece of R2, a piece of 3PO, a piece of the Millennium Falcon,
Yeah.
so a whole bunch of stuff. So I think that's really cool. But yeah, that's what Star Wars is about. I love practical effects
Me too.
so much.
Yeah. And then they used the trash crabs, they had, what was it that was floating? It was like the big claws that were like taking their ship to the crab to be like yum nommed.
Yeah.
They took
I don't know
those
if
and
I-
then tried to direct them outward, and it didn't really work out for them.
No. And then I had some war flashbacks from watching Toy Story 3.
I literally said that. I said, "Oh my god, it's Toy Story."
Yeah, so the kids get in the ship that we now know as the Onyx Cinder, and they try to fly it out of there, but like the giant trash compactor thing is like, actually no, you're gonna stay here with us. And it looked so similar to the Toy Story 3 trash compactor that I
Yep.
was like, man, this is giving me some serious flashbacks.
It was them all holding hands and sitting there and being like, "What are we gonna do?" Before they went into go mode. I was like,
Yeah.
"Wow."
Oh my gosh. There is something about in movies and TV shows, because I know that they have to create suspense, like to get. And I've been rewatching The Walking Dead and watching Fear the Walking Dead, and they do this shit all the time where they wait until the characters wait until the very last second to do something. And it's just like these are kids, so it's a little more understandable. Like Fern waited until the very last second to press the button that, an adult told her to never, ever, ever touch. So understandable in this circumstance. It's just something that I've noticed recently, like watching these zombie shows where they'll wait until the zombie is this far away from them to like jump and like get out of the harm's way. And I'm just like, why did you wait so long? Like, I don't care if you're afraid of heights, like just fucking jump or you're gonna be literally eaten. But anyway,
I also like that this whole like situation of them getting the ship out was very kind of like a culmination of everything that they have learned so far. Like we had the redo of the like banging on the engine. We had Wim back up in the like shooter like cockpit. It was very much like callbacks to the first couple episodes, but them being way more sure of themselves, even though they were still scared. They all were like, okay, we know what we can do, and let's do it because we know that we can at least handle that. And I really enjoyed that. It was cute. Brooke's dying again.
We better wrap this up.
Yeah. I think we're pretty much at the end.
It's a lot of talking I've been doing tonight compared
We had a lot of thoughts tonight.
The last, like, the times that I've talked the most, I think, are every time over this since I've been sick that we've recorded a Re-Yap, which has been 3 now because I'm sick and still sick for that long. I think the last thing that we didn't really talk about was Jod's whole speech. We talked about it a little bit, but
yeah,
he made a convincing enough speech for them to take him along with them for Brutus and the gang to AT-ATN because Jod has promised them riches.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes.
I feel like these last 2 episodes are going to be on AT-ATN.
Yes, I agree.
I hope so. I
They're
hope we
all
get to see the
headed for that.
parents. I want to see what they've been up to, if they've gotten up to the supervisor or not. I'm curious.
I wonder who's going to get there first.
Yeah.
I'm gonna assume that the pirates will, because at least it seems like they left before, because they had already gone up to space when Jod had his whole speech. But I don't know. They also might do it for dramatic effect, like them show up at the same time.
A reuniting.
Yeah, because there's still that part of the trailer that we haven't seen of Jod coming out of the ship with all the kids behind him, and he has the lightsaber on him. So, I don't know.
We shall see.
Yeah. But any other predictions for the next couple weeks?
I don't know. I'm excited to go back to the planet and find out what's going on.
Are we gonna meet? Well, no, I don't think we're gonna meet Tak Renad.
Nah.
His corpse, maybe.
So. Oh, maybe we'll find his. Yeah, maybe he'll be up in the supervisor's office.
Maybe it'll be like that episode of Doctor Who where they go up to the highest like tower or like level of the tower, and everybody is a like corpse.
Yep.
Yeah. I can see that.
Ugh.
There's an AI running the whole.
Yeah, I'm excited to see, because I do think we're going back to Aten for sure next episode. I'm excited to see how Jod reunites with the kids, and I'm excited to see where they end up, and like if we get. I wonder if they're gonna give us any answers. I feel like we're gonna get enough that the audience will be satisfied, but I don't think they're gonna tell us everything. There's just only 2 episodes left, so I feel like we're gonna be left in the dark on some stuff for future.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, I guess we'll find out next week. And we'll be back next week for the Re-Yap. There's a hair in my mouth. It was a cat hair. Speaking of cats, hi Potato. If you're watching this on the YouTubes, there is a small, tiny little baby cat on Sawyer's lap.
So cute.
So much smaller than my cat. My cat is a unit. But anyway, yeah, we'll be back next week with Re-Yap on episode 7. Woo-hoo. So until then, you're gonna listen to this, I think, the day before episode 7 drops. So thanks for hanging out and yapping with us about Skeleton Crew. Let us know your thoughts, your theories, your critiques. Unless they're stupid, then don't tell us, because I don't care. And we'll yap with y'all next time. See you later.
Bye.